Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Live at the Legislature. With us today, we have Representative Mark Hashem, who is chairman of the House Agriculture Committee. He represents District 18, which is part of East Oahu, from Ahaione to Neo Valley to Aina and Wailupe, in those areas. Welcome, Representative. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, I represent East Honolulu. An easy way to remember it is, Kahala Mall
I know it.
on the east side, and that's my one border, and on the other side is Costco. So those are the two main points. That's the two ends of my district, from Kahala Mall to Costco.
Good shopping district.
Yes.
Well, you're also the chair of the House Ag Committee, and I wanted to ask you first about February being invasive species awareness month in Hawaii. How important is that to agriculture in Hawaii to keep invasive species out and protect our farmers?
Oh, it's extremely important. We have the number 2 crop that we have now is coffee at $50 million a year. And we have a new pest that came in just a couple of years ago. It's the coffee leaf rust. So it turns the leaf yellow and makes spots, and it decimated other coffee regions, just completely decimated the whole coffee production. And if that happens here, our number 2 crop might get wiped out. So the famous Kona coffee may no longer be. So.
Oh. Well, you in your committee, you heard House Bill 236 about pest control for, I believe, the coffee borer beetle and the leaf rust. What is that bill, and what is it going to do?
So we have another invasive species for coffee, which is the coffee CBB, coffee berry borer, the beetle that goes inside the coffee, and it basically eats up the inner core of the coffee and hollows it out. And so we have that program to try to eradicate or deal with that pest. And we just put the coffee leaf rust under that same program. So now I call it housekeeping, where the Department of Agriculture can use funds to deal with the berry borer and the leaf rust too. So
at the same time.
Yes. So it goes. It's so they can deal with both issues with the coffee.
What is our number 1 crop in Hawaii? You had mentioned it earlier. What is our number 1 crop?
It's no longer sugar. So, but most people have no clue. It's corn. Corn is at $100 million a year. So, and number 2 is coffee. Yeah. So 95% of all corn that's produced in the United States has a life cycle through Hawaii. And Hawaii is one of the best places in the world for agriculture research. So on the mainland, you have one growing cycle. You have the summer, maybe 2. You might start in the early spring, and you might have one towards the end of summer. But Hawaii, we have 3 growing cycles. So that's why they come here, they do the research, they run it through essentially 3 seasons in a year. And so we're very attractive for agriculture research in Hawaii.
I had no idea that corn was that, big a crop for our residents.
Yes, it used to be at 250 million. It was almost the size of our what is that? The media industry, the film industry. Oh. So with no subsidies, absolutely no subsidies.
Well, outside of agriculture, another issue you're very concerned with is tax reform. What are you thinking along tax reform, and what would you like to do?
Well, yes, I think one of the biggest issues that are facing the local residents now is we need to change our tax structure. And our tax structure was put in place way back 80 years ago, when the Big Five was controlling Hawaii. So what Hawaii did, or what Big Five did, was push a lot of the responsibilities, which is usually in other jurisdictions that are county-based, onto the state. So we have a statewide education system. The state runs the jails, the prisons, and the courts. Other jurisdictions, a lot of times that's run by the counties. And by pushing that onto the state, or the state main source of income is income tax and general excise tax. So by pushing those responsibilities to the state, they could keep the property values really low. And the main people that owned land back in the day was the Big Five. So they kept their prices, their tax rate really extremely low. So fast forward 80 years, Hawaii has the lowest property tax rate in the nation. And oddly enough, now Big Five is gone, and most of the land is owned by offshore investors. So roughly 30% of all real estate in Hawaii is owned by non-residents. And we have the highest income tax. All the tax was shifted to the locals to subsidize Big Five. Well, Big Five's gone now, so the locals are essentially subsidizing the snowbirds for having their second home. So I think we need to shift the tax to make the non-residents pay their fair share.
Well, I see. So shifted from raising the property tax, but lowering the income tax at the same time. Is that correct?
Yes. I actually had a bill. I had two bills that tied together. It was essentially making income tax zero and shifting that burden to property tax. And the way you do get around this, the way you help the locals is you increase the homeowner exemption and the senior exemption. So that less puts on the burden on the local people, and it pushes more towards the snowbirds, the people that own second homes, the Zuckerbergs, the Oprah Winfreys, right? Michael Dell owns probably half of Kona. So
I hope that works. People could use that break, and I think that would bring in more money. We just have about 30 seconds left. In your district, there was some flooding in recent years. What's being done about that?
Yes, there was, in fact, a couple weeks ago, we had extreme flooding. This one lane floods about 3 feet, and it's actually a storm drain that backs up, and it's owned by the Department of Transportation. I thought we had the fix. We tried to fix it once, that didn't work, so we got to go back in and redo it again. So
that works now. Fixing that drain.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. This has been, we learned a lot today. So thank you very much, Representative, for being with us. And thank you all for joining us on Live at the Legislature.
Thank you.
Interested in speaking up about which laws make sense for Hawaii? Want to really get active at the state legislature? Make sure that you've set up an account on the legislature's website, capital.hawaii.gov. All that's required is an email address. Then you can receive email hearing notices for specific bills or for certain committees, or submit written testimony and sign up to testify remotely, or set up a measure tracking list to keep on top of bills you're interested in. Need help? Contact the Public Access Room at 808-587-0478 or par@capital.hawaii.gov.
So what do you see?
A community that is engaged, empowered, a place where free speech is alive and well.
Tell me more.
For 30 years, thousands of local people on TV sharing their stories, culture, and viewpoints uncensored.
Uncensored? Where can that be?
Right here, my son.
Wow!
Isn't it time to empower your voice?
Aloha, and welcome back to the Senate segment of Live at the Legislature. Today, I'm joined by Senate Majority Leader Jay Kalani English. Senator English represents District 7, which includes the areas of Hana, East and Upcountry Maui, Molokai, Lanai, and Kaho'olawe. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Senator, you have one of the largest geographic districts and probably one of the most diverse districts in the state. How has COVID-19 impacted communities like Molokai, Hana, and Lanai?
Yes, it is so diverse and it's so large that we have to really have different approaches to different areas. So for Hana, if you remember in the very beginning, we actually asked the National Guard to shut down the Hana Highway on both sides to isolate Hana because we didn't know what coronavirus was. We didn't know how it was spread. And so for the first time ever, I think, we isolated East Maui. For Molokai and Lanai, we did essentially the same with air travel and boat travel. And then we went into things, we had to do things that were never done before. Food distributions, medicine distributions, even into plants for food later on down the line. So we kind of went back to an ancient system of taking care of different districts and providing short-term relief, and then also planting and plants and things for long-term relief. And then we had another area, which is upcountry and Kula, more urbanized, more city-like, and so they were able to receive food, receive the same things, but in different ways. So very diverse approach.
I think one of the important things that you've worked on during this pandemic is to make sure that the rural areas of your district aren't forgotten. Oftentimes, when we see a lot of these relief efforts, they are focused in the large populated areas. But what you've done, with Molokai, with Hana, in providing masks, in providing food, was really critical to the well-being of your district. Why was it important for you to do that? We've seen early on that you were out there handing out potatoes. You were out there making sure folks got food, and in a modern day government, we don't really see our leaders out there. But you took the extra step. Can you talk about that briefly too?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me about the mask. I actually just forgot about it until you mentioned it. But we worked with community partners, right? And they brought in masks. So we did a distribution of 20,000 masks in East Maui. I think we did the same distribution on Molokai and Lanai and Upcountry. But for East Maui, I actually took the mask into Hana and then had it distributed to all the various communities. And then the remote communities then took it and distributed to the families and people living in their areas. So, areas like Lower Nahiku in Hana, Maua Village in Kaupo, Kahiki Nui, very, very remote areas, we made sure that they got these supplies. There were two reasons. The first was that we needed to get these out. They couldn't, afford them, they couldn't get them any other way. And then the other thing was to start getting people into the loop so that when we do the food distributions and we do other distributions, we had systems in place. It was a conscious choice for me to go out there and actually do it because people were scared and are scared. And I think they needed to see us doing things. And for me, because I live in Hana, that's my home. I'm from there. I will always return there. I'll be buried there when I pass. It's important for my people to see that, I'm out there and I'm helping and I'm arranging things, which then gave a bit of comfort to people that they actually went and did things. So we had huge cooperation from, let's say, the stores, right? Think about the stores having to shut down, and how did they survive, right? How did they continue? So, for example, we provided back-end support to Hana Store to help them get online, help them to move their inventory online so that people can look at what they have, order things, and then they pre-make the order and come outside and give it to them. We put the stores on Molokai and Lanai in touch with the stores in Hana so that they could talk about best practices. How do they do, serving people outside? How do they do food prep? How do they enforce mask wearing, gloves, sanitation, all of those things. It was very very difficult to organize, but we had good partners. And I think one of the main things that came out of this was that it is a partnership. I mean, government cannot do it alone, and we had a lot of private individuals and organizations that stepped forward, and that's what saved us all.
Yeah, one of the things that came out of this pandemic is what you're calling the East Maui Reservation Project. Can you talk about that? Because I think you are on the real cutting edge of something big.
So when we shut down the Hana Highway, well, let me back up. The Hana Highway, we can say on average at the full peak of tourism, we'd have maybe 10 to 14,000 cars a day going down that road. And it was congested, and everything was, it was a bad experience for everybody, locals and tourists. With the shutdown of the Hana Highway, suddenly we had nobody coming down the road. Hana had a chance to heal. He literally healed. Forests grew back, oceans became stronger, fish came back. Our own local people started going to places that we haven't been to for years. I live between Hamoa Beach and Koki Beach, two of the best beaches on Maui. It is so crowded that I haven't been there for years. During this pandemic, I went to Koki, I went to Hamoa Beach, and it reminded me of what it was like when I was growing up as a kid. So our guys decided that, we liked this. We liked being able to enjoy our place. The place needed the time to heal, to regenerate. And through our Zoom meetings, the other thing we did was we set up Zoom meetings with our communities. So Representative Decoit and I, because we have such a huge district, we started doing Zoom meetings, which was very new for our communities, and asking our communities to join us. And so they did. We had Zoom meetings with 800 people on it, 600 people, with Molokai, with Lanai, with Hana, with Upcountry, with different areas. And in those meetings, a lot of the people would say, we don't want to go back to what it was. We don't want all these people coming in. We want more management. So we started creating the East Maui Management System, a reservation system, to bring people online. It's mauiwayfinding.com. We're developing it. Waianapanapa State Park is the first segment of that, and they've actually gone online. So now you need a reservation to go to Waianapanapa State Park. There's also fees to go in, and we manage how people come and go there. That's going to be the bigger system on East Maui soon.
Thank you, Senator. And we are out of time. And thank you for joining us. And for those of you at home, we will see you next week on the Senate segment of Live at the Legislature. Mahalo.
The Public Access Room has some great handouts to help you make sense of the deadlines that govern the action here at the Capitol. In addition to our color-coded session calendar, our Which Deadlines Apply to My Bill document can help to keep you sane. It's a handy chart that helps you find which deadlines you need to focus on for a specific bill, depending on the number of committee referrals it's received. Find these handouts and more under the Current Legislature tab on our website, and call or email us if you'd like help.
It's very important to have Melea'e here.
The experience of local artists that are going to be the future of our music here in Hawaii.
There's a huge music scene that is pretty underground.
This is a great platform to get seen. All genres that exist are out here, and there's people that love it and that are making it.
That gives us as young and even older musicians an opportunity to share our music that we never ever had before.
Active at the state legislature? Remember, you don't have to do it alone. Ask friends, family, and colleagues if they can join you. Give them a specific task. Call a legislator to ask for a hearing, say, or submit written testimony on a bill. Looking for others who may want to join you? Check out testimony from past years. Find similar bills and contact the people or organizations who spoke up and seem to share your views. Need help with all this? Call or email the Nonpartisan Public Access Room.
And welcome back to the House Minority segment of Live at the Legislature. Joining us for an always fun conversation on the other side of East Honolulu is Representative Gene Ward. He is the co-chair of the Small Business Caucus and serves on the Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. Rep. Ward, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How did we know it's going to be fun?
It's always fun.
Okay.
The ledge. So we're going to start this segment off with talking about a good friend of yours, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, and House Bill 1075, which was heard in your committee. Can you talk a little bit about that bill?
In the beginning, Josh and I served on the Health Committee, which I serve on now also, and we got to know each other. And then as his ambitions grew, his Senate seat and now Lieutenant Governor seat, what we got kind of, if I can be very descriptive, is a hit piece, HB 1075, which is called the Get Lieutenant Governor Green out of his these blues that they wear, socks. But you know, I can think of no better time to have a lieutenant governor as a position than now, under a pandemic, under things where you need medical and scientific experience as well as political. So he's the ideal guy. But they say, oh, well, wait a minute, 1075 says it's effective after he leaves office. Well, so was the Kirk Caldwell bill, effective after Kirk Caldwell, who received from a bank 125 or 150,000 per year, in addition to his mayor's salary of 175,000. So if they were really serious in not having it a hit piece on Josh, they would have, when they said, okay, governors and mayors, you can't have any emoluments or any outside job. They should have put the lieutenant governors in there now. And now, since they know that Lieutenant Governor Green is running for governor and Kurt Caldwell is running for governor, it's kind of, choosing sides and picking pieces. And it doesn't pass the smell test, but hopefully it's not going to pass and hopefully it'll go away. But it's one of those kind of sore thumbs that stick out in the legislature rather early on as we are.
What was the discussion like in committee?
People denied that it was actually like a hit piece against Kurt Caldwell against Josh Green, because after he takes his leave from office, the bill takes effect. And they thought because of that, that would be the case. But the same bill that they did on Kurt Caldwell, which was clearly known as the Get Kurt Caldwell bill, also took effect after he had left office. The irony of this, guy, and for those of us are interested in these emoluments issues, is that the Ethics Commission actually cleared the mayor prior to this bill to be able to receive over $100,000 for a few hours per month. And it, quote, met the standard of the HRS or the statute. I just find that just really phenomenal. Anyways, that's the history behind this. And we always have, we used to, during the Lingle administration, we used to get Lingle bills to make sure that she doesn't get this passed or that passed. There's all kinds of games, cat and mouse stuff that's going on in the legislation. The latest just happens to be the Josh Green
Absolutely. And we will transition on to, so you are the co-chair of the Small Business Caucus with Representative Kong from IAEA. And last week you had a briefing with Chamber of Commerce Hawaii and the Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Can you talk a little bit about what that conversation was like with the reps and what they had to say about where small business is in Hawaii right now?
Thank you. Great question. We had a double header, actually. We had Sherry Minoru McNamara, Hawaii Chamber of Commerce president, and Tina Yamaki from the Retail Merchants Association. If anybody knows what's going on the ground floor of what small business is doing, it's those two people. So we had them on a Zoom with the legislature. We recorded it, and now it's going out to all of the people in the legislature so they can know that this is the session where we really got to hand a life jacket or a life-saving or at least hope to the small business community. There's over 40-some thousand of them out there, and right now they're struggling. And one of the takeaways, and Kaio, this is one of the shockers, using UHERO UH research, they said that 40% of the small businesses that exist now are not going to exist after the pandemic. That is shocking. That is thousands upon thousands of people are going to lose their job. I hope that that's just an overprojection. But if even half of it's true, these guys are going to go down burning like that engine on the airplane yesterday. Tried to leave Denver and that thing just exploded. The danger is that, for example, the Small Business Caucus introduced a bill to make sure that the unemployment insurance tax didn't go up. It stays at the present rate or is declined. But if you look at DBED, I asked the other day the small business Sean from the North Shore on the Quinlan. I said, how many bills did the DBED put in to help the small business community? He said 0. And I'm thinking the whole reason for their existence is to promote, sustain, make survive the small business community. And they did diddly squat. So I'm rather disappointed. In fact, they took out one of the diversifications of the economy in the governor's budget, the aerospace development department, or the aerospace division of DBED, and they nixed it. They literally cut it out. And on the floor, we had it the other day, that they have a travel budget in there so they can get swirling travel money away. But in terms of diversification, we could become the aerospace center of the Pacific. And we didn't do it. My point is this, Gaio, very bluntly. If we don't help small business this time, we are derelict in our duties. If we don't keep the survival rate at the national average, and we go worse, and we got the worst economy now in the nation with the highest unemployment. If we don't do that, I think there should be really a big shakeup. Who's running this state?
And how do you think the legislature is doing at this point in session of addressing those issues for small business?
I think the undercover one that we haven't seen yet, because Sylvia Luke and the Finance Committee and WHAM has not come forward, but filling the budget deficit is probably one of the biggest things. One of the greatest things that they've done so far is to sweep all the special funds into the general funds. There's a lot of people crying and weeping over that, but that's probably the only way we're going to make it. The other thing that we got to do is get rid of this pandemic. We've got the vaccinations. We're off to a good start. But I've said this in time again, like a broken record, if we don't get testing, i.e. the spit in a cup with our local Allure 19, as it's called by Patrick Sullivan, Ocean It, we're going to be always guessing, hey, is it safe to go in here? Is it safe to go? Oh, they got a vaccine. Well, vaccinations aren't for sure. The point is we need this 10-minute, $20 test to be on the shelf and like a pregnancy test for everybody to know that they're safe. Right now, they're right at the edge of FDA approval. They haven't got it yet, but hopefully that's going to be something that comes up in the budget, but I haven't seen it so far. He needs to get a pre-order in order to survive, to form the first pharmaceutical industry in the state of Hawaii. We always talk about diversifying the economy, and we're sitting on our hands with this thing just down the street from us. In, I think it's the Fort Street Mall. So we can do better. The bottom line is we can do better.
Absolutely. And with that, Rep. Ward, we are out of time.
No, we just got started. Come on, Kyle.
So thanks again to the folks at Olelo. Thank you to the folks at home for joining us this week. And we will see you next time at Live at the Legislature.
Aloha.